Greetings and welcome to the 2019 Candidate Forum for the Milltown Borough mayoral race. Thank you for joining us either in person in the council chambers today during this taping on the evening of October 23rd, 2019, or on video delay on YouTube and Channel 15. My name is Kaimann and I will be serving as the moderator for these proceedings. I'm a 30-plus year veteran reporter and editor, having worked for such local publications as the Home News Tribune, the Star-Ledger, and the New York Times. In accordance with the policies and procedures of this forum, I do not live in Milltown. I have no political ties to Milltown, and I do not know either of the candidates personally. I have met them for the first time this evening. And as such, I apologize in advance for possibly mispronouncing local names, which I am unfamiliar. The format for our discussion is as follows. There will be 3-minute opening statements from each candidate, preceded by me reading biographies from each. Next, reporter questions will be asked. Audience questions will follow. And then, after a 5-minute break, each candidate will give 3-minute closing remarks. Wishing each candidate the best of luck, we flipped a coin before we went live, and Richard Ravelinsky won the coin toss. I will read his biography now. Councilman Richard Ravelinsky is seeking his first term as mayor of Milltown. Councilman Ravelinsky, 38 years old and a lifelong Milltown resident. As a child, Councilman Ravelinsky was exposed to politics. His parents, Jackie and Joe, were heavily involved in the Milltown and County Democratic Party. Councilman Ravelinsky learned at a young age that giving back to his community was work worth doing. Councilman Ravelinsky attended Milltown schools prior to attending Spotswood High School and then Rutgers University School of Engineering. There he studied physics, chemistry, and other natural sciences and earned his Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Policy. Councilman Ravelinsky earned his master's degree from Stevens Institute of Technology in 2011. In his professional career, Councilman Ravelinsky has always sought challenging opportunities. He began working after college for a local engineering firm, learning the water and wastewater industry and the critical aspects of maintaining our infrastructure, Councilman Ravelinsky and his wife Jennifer have 2 children, Everett, age 7, and Adeline, age 5. In the community, Councilman Ravelinsky has volunteered with the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency, the Milltown 4th of July Committee, and the Milltown Revitalization Committee. He teaches his children that to keep your town strong, you have to give back. Helping neighbors and the community is something Councilman Ravelinsky has taken great pride in. Councilman Ravelinsky was elected to office in 2016 and began his first term in 2017. As a councilman, Rich has served as chairman of the Utility Department in 2017 and 2019, as well as a member of the Finance Committee. Councilman Ravelinsky is the current chairman of the Recreation Committee. In 2017, Councilman Ravelinsky continued to maintain our water infrastructure with the painting of the water tower at Home Depot. Councilman Ravelinsky voted to keep our children safe by denying a business from utilizing our library as a permanent means of access to a Main Street business. Today, the businesses on Main Street is still strong, and our children are safer for his efforts. Councilman Ravelinsky worked tirelessly to address the new state regulations for lead and copper testing, meeting with DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, holding several public meetings to dispel rumors and help the public understand the nature of the issue at hand. With the use of funds obtained through a settlement with PSE&G, Councilman Ravelinsky worked to obtain new equipment for the Utility Department and DPW so they may better serve the community, as well as remove over 100 trees throughout the borough that were detrimental to public safety and our utilities. Councilman Ravelinsky introduced several initiatives and opportunities to address the short-staffed and financial issues faced by the Utility Department. Most recently introduced to council and the public a policy to switch monthly water sewer billing to aid in the financial stability of the borough and provide a mechanism for residents to better budget. In 2018, Councilman Ravelinsky worked with the Utility Department, professionals, and began discussions with neighboring town to address our aging force main. His effort included evaluating the economic impact of 3 options for eliminating our dependence on New Brunswick water system, cost saving by developing a project in conjunction with the needs of neighborhood communities, and the fair share contributions from the developer of Ford Avenue. As chairman of Recreation Committee, Councilman Ravelinsky worked with the Borough Staff and Finance Committee to obtain online registration system to improve the efficiency of the department and ensure its funding in the 2019 budget. That is his biographical statement, and now we will hear his opening statement for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Fred. Good evening. I am Councilman Rich Ravelinsky, as most likely you already know, and tonight we'll be discussing some issues that as a town we all face together, and that as your next mayor, both myself or Councilwoman Mayor will intend to address. We all have hopes and dreams for our town. There are issues we want to address, as well as the issues we need to address. And despite the borough we inherited, we have made significant strides toward correcting many issues and getting Milltown on the right track. While I believe the Councilwoman and I both want to improve life in the borough and tackle many of the same issues, tonight and through our discussions, you will likely see a few fundamental differences in approach. In the past 2 years, it has gotten downright ugly at council meetings, and it needs to stop. Our elected officials need to put aside party politics and truly work together to achieve success. It is an honor and a privilege to be on the Borough Council. The noble endeavor of serving one's community should be cherished and respected, and we need to treat each other with respect. As mayor, my first order of business will be to move toward being a non-partisan town. By eliminating political parties, I believe our council members will finally work together to get reelected on the merit of their achievements and not on trying to point out the flaws of others. At the reorganization meeting on January 1st, 2020, prior to any appointment of position, as mayor, I will ask that each council member identify which department they wish to lead and why. Like any organization, it is imperative that people with the knowledge and whom have demonstrated the courage to take the necessary steps towards improvement lead each department. Many people have asked me why, with a beautiful wife and 2 young kids, I'm running for mayor. We all want a better life for our children than what we had. We all want to spend our money wisely and get a return on our investments. We all want our children to be thankful and proud of their hometown. I'm running for mayor because I believe that I am the right person for the job. With a young family, I'm here to stay. I am committed to Milltown and look forward to the progress we can make in the coming years to strengthen our community and our town. As your mayor, I pledge the following. I will not break a tie on the first vote, forcing council to work together. I will set an agenda of items to be addressed and resolved each year and hold the council responsible for enacting them. I will encourage council to have open discussions during meetings and come prepared to speak on specific issues. No issue should be left without a clear direction on how to move forward. As your mayor, I will remain an active member of the Ford Avenue Regional Development Agency as per its bylaws, continuing to make progress and maintaining the knowledge within the agency that I have gained throughout my service. As your mayor, I will work to encourage volunteerism, which is the lifeblood for many of Milltown organizations. I look forward to your support on Election Day as we turn a new page in our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ravelinsky. Ms. Mayor's biographical statement reads as follows. Trina Jensen Mayor was born and raised in Milltown. She attended Milltown Public Schools and Rutgers Preparatory School. She received her undergraduate degree from Smith College and her master's degree in business administration from Tulane University. She works at Bristol Myers Squibb as a compliance project specialist. Trina co-founded the Milltown Education Foundation, on which she served as a trustee for 8 years. She served on the Milltown Board of Education for 4 years. Trina was elected to the Milltown Borough Council in 2017. She was appointed as chair of the Utilities Committee in January 2019. Prior to that, she was chair of the Environmental Health and Social Services Committee. Currently, she serves as liaison to the Milltown Municipal Alliance and Milltown Board of Education. Trina is also chairing the steering committee for the Schwedenman Nature Center, pardon my pronunciation, and she is the organizer of the Milltown Strategic Planning Committee. Trina and her late husband, Paul, moved back to Milltown in 1998. She has 3 children, Peter, 26, Jack, 23, and Grace, 21. As mayor, Trina looks to restore the communication, transparency, and accountability that has been missing at Borough Hall. Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening, Milltown. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As we approach a crucial election for our town, I appreciate your attention to the forum to learn more about your mayoral candidates and our plans for the future. While the future vision for our beloved town is important, you should also pay close attention to what we, both incumbents, have done while in office. Mark Twain said that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So let's look at our records. I have been on the council for almost 2 years, my opponent for almost 3. I said I wanted to bring transparency, accountability, and financial responsibility to the borough. For transparency, I proposed a resolution to have 2 council meetings a month at my very first council meeting. As liaison to the cable TV, I approved the streaming of council meetings on YouTube as well as on Channel 15. Now they are available to view at any time. I was also instrumental in getting the new website up and running and has been up for about a year. Since taking over as utilities chair from my opponent, I have made Nixle alerts. I'm sorry, I'm putting my glasses on just so I can see my note. I have made Nixle alerts for water sewer issues a standard operating procedure. As far as accountability, I created, as Mr. Kaimann said, the Schwendeman Nature Center Steering Committee to collaborate with stakeholders, most notably the Boy Scouts, who are rehabilitating the cottage to become a nature center with meeting spaces for the Environmental Commission and the Scouts. I also started gathering input for a strategic plan for the borough by forming the Strategic Planning Committee. My opponent voted yes on a 10% and then a 30% increase in your water sewer rates. He voted yes for the biggest bond issuance in Milltown's history. He voted yes on this year's budget, which was the biggest increase in recent memory. I voted no on the 30% increase. I sat here and listened to the public outcry and voted no to come up with a better solution. I also voted no on the budget this year in hopes of getting the council to work together to come up with a more equitable solution. I have been the chair of the Utilities Committee this year. My opponent had that role for the previous 2 years. I have held Utility Committee meetings every month and had 2 public meetings. I reached out for assistance for our aging infrastructure to the county, and I was pleased to read their response last week stating that they committed to collaborate with us and assist with the design and planning of a new forced main sewer line, saving the borough $1.7 million. I'll continue to ask for assistance from the county and from the state. Mr. Ravelinsky has made presentations to use smart meters for utilities, privatize the water utility, institute the Ravelinsky Rate Equalization Act of 2019. Unfortunately, none of those initiatives have proceeded due to the high cost to implement. So there you have our records. I hope that you'll consider what I've accomplished in my short time on council as an indicator as what I can do as your mayor. Be open, be accessible, be accountable, listen to you, talk with you, not at you, and make sure that things get done that will benefit all of us.
Thank you, candidates, for those opening statements. Now we turn to a distinguished panel of reporters to ask questions from people who are covering the municipality on a daily basis. We are joined by Sue Loyer of the Home News Tribune, Kathy Chang of the Sentinel, and Dawn Miller of tapinto.net. We will take questions from them in that order. Ms. Loyer.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Communication with residents was discussed in length during the council candidates forum last week. Do you think there is a lack of communication, and what would you do to address it?
Ms. Mayor.
Yes, so as I said in my opening statement, I think we've gotten better, but I still think we have a ways to go. I know the Nixle alerts that before I became Utilities Committee chair, there was a lot of discussion about people not knowing what was happening when there was a water main break or various other things. So that's why I said we have to have Nixles regardless. There's no decision making, we will have Nixles. I certainly advocate, if I was mayor, I would coordinate with all of the committee chairs to open their meetings to the public, particularly the Finance Committee. I know when we've talked about developing a budget that there's no reason why we can't have an open meeting to get input from the residents. We can certainly keep leveraging the website to do a little better job. It's an improvement, but we do have a little bit of a ways to go on that. But we're heading in the right direction, but communication with the residents to get the information out and then also to get feedback back is really the most important thing.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky.
Thank you. Communication is important, and in fact, if we don't hear back from the residents, it's one of the biggest problems that we face in moving forward. Not only do we fail then to actually describe the plan moving forward and get feedback, but we also fail to identify those problems and the shortcomings faced by the residents. One of those issues that comes to mind is the lead and copper sample. As you may know, we failed the sample test about 2 or 3 years ago. As a result of that, we had to do increased monitoring. There was public outcry and concern over the impact, and unfortunately, a lot of people spread misinformation about the extent to which that impact would have on the residents. We held several meetings here at Borough Hall, which was jam-packed, and we discussed the implications and what the true source of the problem is, as well as with brown water. Nonetheless, every time the issue rears its head, folks say they've never heard about it before. So communication, we need to do a better job, but the residents also need to do a better job of trying to find out the correct information.
Thank you. The next question will come from Kathy Chang at the Sentinel, and we'll go to Mr. Ravelinsky first.
As a leader of Milltown, how will you lead old Milltown into a new Milltown, but preserve the historic nature of the borough?
Good question. I think that one of the aspects that makes Milltown so charming is our downtown, and I know Ms. Mayor has worked with the Strategic Planning Committee to try and revitalize that. One of the issues that we face, though, is that it's private property. So in my efforts under the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency, we are trying to focus on bringing a project finally to fruition that will benefit the town and get us on the right track, but at the same time, try and support the businesses downtown. We definitely need new businesses in town, and one of the ways to address that is to change the rate structure in which we bill for electric. A lot of those businesses are billed as demand meters because simply they're a registered business, even though they might have a hair salon or a barber shop there that isn't using an excessive amount of electricity as the rates are truly designed to do. So we need to attract businesses, and we need to also maintain a sense of storefront and a common theme along Main Street, and I think that's how we will maintain it, as well as with our community outreach and the programs that we have that keep our community together.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. So yes, as part of the strategic planning, one of the things was the revitalization of the downtown. I know that as I've been going around door to door this year, and when I was running for council 2 years ago, that seemed to be a main concern, that people want Main Street and the downtown area to be spruced up. So it's twofold. We can work with the revitalization committee to work on the businesses being spruced up, which is private property. However, I've heard from a lot of people that they would love to have nicer street lights or things like that that would make it more attractive, as well as making sure that we keep our code enforcement up to date to make any potential eyesores on Main Street be held accountable as well. So I am the liaison to the revitalization committee. I know that we have work to do on that, but the residents at the planning committee will come and be a sub-team and work on that particular issue to get our downtown and bring us into new Milltown while maintaining our old Milltown charm.
Thank you.
Hi.
Next question is from Dawn Miller, and it will go to Ms. Mayor first.
Hi. Do you have any plans for the redevelopment of Ford Avenue?
No, I don't have any plans for the redevelopment of Ford Avenue. It's already been done probably 20 years ago, maybe even before I moved back to town. I would defer that question to Councilman Ravelinsky, who has been on the redevelopment agency for quite some time. I will say that we have asked for updates at the redevelopment agency, at the council meeting from the agency. I saw that there was quite a discussion on Facebook, but I don't have much information. We get, after the council meetings, we get information from the lawyers in executive session, but unfortunately, with the things that have been going on, a lot of people have said, gee, I wish it could be this, I wish it could be that. I wish that too. My first wish is that we clean up the rubble that's there. So if you said, what do I want to happen? I want that to be cleaned up because it's been an eyesore for years. But in the meantime, unfortunately, with the legal issues and the developer who owns it, the borough doesn't really have much say-so.
Mr. Ravelinsky.
Plans for redevelopment of Ford Avenue. Basically, years ago, when the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency first started, the plan was to have a nice waterfront promenade with some space set aside, some restaurants, some shops, reutilize the old buildings that were there. Unfortunately, the agency members at the time decided to throw caution to the wind and ignore the state's mandates for low-income housing, which opened the door to several lawsuits from that time, which we are still battling today. As a result of those lawsuits, the state has looked into us further and said, no, Milltown, you really don't have a lot of space to redevelop, so therefore you got to cram as much into this location as possible. And therefore, a lot of the retail shops and the waterfront promenade is gone. It's unfortunate, and we're doing our best to make sure that is not too many units on that site, and we've been successful in recent court cases. But the biggest problem that we face is a lot of these things, because it is still an open litigation, cannot be discussed in the public in true detail. We hope that the developer will amend his plan once it is approved and we do take the property and start cleanup. However, that's really up to them and the approval of the planning board.
Thank you. Starting our second round of questions from the reporter panel. Susan Loyer, question for Mr. Ravelinsky first.
Sure. If elected mayor, how would you address the water, sewer, and infrastructure issues without actually overburdening residents?
I would definitely work towards finally getting a resolution passed, or at least at a minimum, open up to a ballot question in 2020. I'd like to see whether or not the public has an appetite for privatization. Quite frankly, Milltown, as it stands with its 7,000 residents, along with most other small towns in New Jersey, it's a big undertaking to not only maintain but improve our system, and it's going to cost money. So with privatization, or at least an interested party, say even if New Brunswick were offering to buy us, it wraps up the debt as well as works with the economies of scale of having one entity that covers a large number. One of the issues that we face is residents' concern on the sewer bill, that it is detrimental to them because even though they're watering their lawn, they're still paying sewer on that. Unfortunately, that's based on the agreement we have currently with New Brunswick, while other towns have been able to subvert that by charging a flat rate for residents. Those towns are much larger, and if we can work to create a sewer authority with adjacent towns, I think we'll be able to achieve that goal as well.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If you were elected mayor, how would you address the water, sewer, and infrastructure issues in the borough without overburdening residents?
So we've been talking about that a lot the last couple of years. My main, as the mayor, would be to have a plan. We have had a capital plan, and we have had a long-range plan for infrastructure that somehow the council over the last few years has skipped over the infrastructure issues. We have an aging force main sewer line, we have aging water lines. So however, I would say as mayor that we have to plan and save for these projects to be done, as well as collaborate with the county, the state, to ask for any help that we can get to do that. However, we cannot keep putting Band-Aids on this. We just recently spent $500,000 to put a Band-Aid on the force main sewer line. So I would say as mayor, we have to make decisions based on the risk and the impact of something happening in the future, and we have not done that so far because the impact of not fixing our infrastructure is continuing to cost the taxpayers and the ratepayers by having to do these extremely costly fixes over and over again.
Thank you. The next question from Kathy Chang at the Sentinel. We'll go to Ms. Mayer first.
If elected mayor, other than water and sewer, what do you think the biggest challenge facing the borough is?
Well, I would have to say it's, there's Ford Avenue is a big challenge. We hear that a lot from residents. It's going to fundamentally change our town, which tangentially affects the water sewer line because we have to prepare for that. That's one thing. I think, the challenge is, as we alluded to, is to make sure that we have a well-functioning council. As mayor, I would insist that we have the leadership to have the committee people interact with one another, that we have better communication amongst each other, which we haven't had for the last couple of years. But really, I think Ford Avenue is the main issue that is going to affect our town in the near future and in the long term.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky.
I would have to say that I do agree Ford Avenue is a particularly kind of a thorn in the side right now, as they owe us nearly $3 million in back taxes. It prevents us from moving forward with other plans. However, our water and sewer infrastructure is a critical component, and in part with that is when you do a project, you should be looking at your water mains, your sewer mains, your gas mains, your curbs, your sidewalks, and your streets. Unfortunately, the amount of work to be done with the water and sewer is prohibiting us from getting to normal routine maintenance. And again, it becomes an economies of scale. When we have a $14 million project to do, and we're waiting on the developer from Ford Avenue to give his fair share contribution for off-site improvements, you don't necessarily want to go out and do that project immediately because you want to get the money in from the developer. The other aspect to that too is what's the best route? Are we able to get away from New Brunswick, or do we have to go to them? I would like to see vast improvements be made to our park system. We've got a great town, a walkable town, a town that a lot of residents use our parks and our public spaces, and unfortunately that has gone by the wayside in recent years. I'd like to see more reinvestment in that.
Thank you. Dawn Miller from TAP Info will ask the next question to Mr. Ravelinsky first.
If elected, do you plan on exploring additional shared services agreements for the borough?
Absolutely. I think shared services is the way to go. Again, I'm a big proponent of economies of scale, because when you look at Milltown trying to do things ourselves, it costs the residents individually more. And with the ratables that other towns have, with large developments as well as massive amounts of businesses, whether it's North Brunswick or South Brunswick or East Brunswick, they've got a lot more to offer us. One such item could be, again, our water and sewer infrastructure. I evaluated and spoke with several council members offline from neighboring towns about what their needs are in the future to see if we could develop something of a water group or a sewer authority in order to offset the cost for the sewer force main, as well as base our usage and demand on theirs as well, and try and share some of those costs and level the playing field for residents in Milltown. But there's a lot more to do. There's tree trimming. There's North Brunswick helps us a lot with cameraing our TV systems. But there's a lot of things we want to keep and maintain as well to maintain our identity as Milltown and not just become a speck on a map.
Thank you. Ms. Mayer.
Thank you. Yes, definitely. I would advocate for shared services. We do share a few things with East Brunswick now, the street sweeper. We have water line clearers from New Brunswick, but under my leadership, I would always be willing to collaborate with whoever wanted to share services with us. And I will say that this past summer, I noticed online that Mayor Cohen from East Brunswick invited all of the surrounding towns to a meeting to discuss shared services. I saw a picture online. I didn't see anyone from Milltown, so I emailed him and asked him why Milltown didn't have representation, and he said that he invited our mayor, and our mayor didn't show up. So I would hope that if the mayor couldn't do it, I know we're all busy, to appoint someone else to go. So under my leadership, we would certainly always collaborate with our surrounding towns to get the best benefit for your tax dollars so that we, while we maintain our identity, of course, we can benefit from stuff that they have that we couldn't possibly afford.
Thank you. We have more time for more questions from the reporter panel, so I'll turn back to you. Susan Loyer, do you have another question?
Sure. When the new combined firehouse is completed, what would you like to see done with the firehouses on Main Street and Cottage Avenue?
So I was just at the opening of the Historical Society on Saturday. I would love to see the firehouse on Main Street be a restaurant or some private industry come and fix it up and make it a nice part of that area. As far as the one on Cottage Avenue, I would love to see that maybe be, that I know that the schools, the Board of Education owned it, perhaps there could be some sort of youth center, or the schools could use it for SAC, I'm not sure. But what I will say is that 2 years ago, in 2017, that's when they had the bond issuance to decide to move everything. So here we are 2 years later with absolutely no idea of what's going to happen with those. So the fire departments are going to move to their new facility, and those are going to sit empty. And it again goes back to, where's been the planning? Why will those sit empty? And as far as the monument goes, I would think that I would honor firefighters wherever they are. My father and my grandfather's names are on there, so I would respect it, wherever they want to move them. That would be a perfect, if it's to the new firehouse, that would be great, because then it would be a whole facility to honor our firefighters.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky.
I think we should put it up to the public, and I know that with the back and forth that occurred with council, it was really hard to make a decision. We didn't know when the new facility would go up or how long it would take, so I can understand the delay in action there. Quite frankly, I think that we should maintain the Cottage Avenue station. My gut tells me that in the future, with the flooding of Mill Pond, on heavy rains, that will serve as a nice strategic point to either place emergency vehicles, the police to operate from, and have us a presence on the north side of town when the water is unpassable. I think it can also serve as a benefit to the firemen, and perhaps even something that they'd be interested in maintaining as for all of their records and for the history of them. As for Main Street, there's a tremendous amount of history there. I think it's a terrific looking building, but quite frankly, the reason that we got out of it is because despite the grant monies that came in to repair it, the roof leaks, it's out of date, the windows are falling out. So I would propose that we sell that, but again, I really think that this is a question best left up to the public to see what they feel and how they would want to approach the situation.
Thank you. Kathy Chang from the Sentinel, another question for Mr. Ravelinsky first.
If elected, have you thought about what you would like to do as your first order of business, and what would that be?
Yes, as my first order of business, I would like to move towards being a nonpartisan town. I think the party politics that occur up here on council are disgusting. I know I've tried to work with folks in the past, only to have them turn around and reject it and say, well, I wanted to make the mayor squirm, as their reasoning for voting no on something. We need to stand together in this town, and we're up against some tough decisions moving forward. And unfortunately, there's a lot of divisiveness that goes along with voting no and voting yes, and trying to separate people and pull them apart from side to side. So that would be my first order of business. Secondly, after that, I would definitely want to make sure that the council members acknowledge and respect each other and each other's abilities, because it's not worth putting someone in charge of a committee if they don't know what the heck they're talking about. So everybody should come together with a plan to move forward and work together to identify who should be in charge of each department.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. So at the reorganization meeting, I would fairly determine who should be the department chairs and make sure that they have a equitable distribution of people that are interested. I think Councilman Ravelinsky brings up a good point about people that don't seem to be interested in their committee. However, they are put there just to save a place for, so somebody else doesn't get it. I actually looked at it as an honor that Mayor Stieber gave me the Utilities Committee this year, since that seemed to be the committee with the most challenges. So I would definitely say that, the organization, the mayor is like the CEO, and you're getting your board of directors set up right off the bat to deal with one another. I have found that, I'm surprised to hear Councilman Ravelinsky say we don't get along. I've called and spoken to everyone, collaborated. I've filled him in on everything that's gone on in my committee, and I wish that all of the other committee chairs would do the same.
Thank you. Dawn Miller from tapinto.net. Question for Ms. Mayor.
At last week's councilman forum, people had asked about getting the borough's finances in order. I was wondering if either of you had a plan for getting the borough's finances together.
Oh, that's to me? Yes, well, so as I said, I'm a firm believer in long-range planning. For the strategic planning, it would be to plan, to come up with our strategic plan that would plan for 5, 10, 15 years out. That way we can target our resources for short-term and longer-term. Also, to work with our new BA to develop resources for our long-range capital plan. And also what I would do for financial planning is make sure that before we take out a new gigantic bond issuance, that we look at the bond cliffs. So in other words, we did the biggest bond in Milltown's history 2 years ago. However, now we have to wait until the drop-off until the mid-2020s. So unfortunately, we're really hamstrung with a lot of debt, and it makes it harder to do other projects. So while we would love to have some money to do the infrastructure, we have a $20 million bond to pay back over the next 20 years. So that makes it a little more difficult for the borough.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky.
Thank you. One of the biggest issues that we face in Milltown is a true lack of ratables. Most of the properties in town are residents or are contributing to our school system as well in one way or another. And the result of that is that the more kids that we bring in, the more costs for the school, and the less that there is percentage-wise from the tax money brought in that can go to the borough. It's one of the reasons why I proposed a rate study or an analysis of the rates to be done in a monthly billing to assist with budgeting so we can capture and understand what we're spending and what our revenue is from our utility rates. We do it with electric, and we should be doing it with water and sewer as well. Another thing I would suggest is that as costs increase, that it doesn't require a council vote to incur those costs or raise the rates accordingly. We've had several increases over the last 7 years from the city of New Brunswick in our water and sewer rates, and council has failed to address that, only to leave detriment to us later on. So we've got long-range planning, and one of the other things that I'd like to add is that I would like to bring in an in-house engineer so that when it goes term to term and we have a change in who's in charge up here, that the plan is stuck to and is not deviated from.
Thank you. And thanks to our panel of reporters for those 3 rounds of questions. Next, we turn to audience questions that have been already submitted. The first one reads, and first goes to Mr. Ravelinsky as we've been alternating. What is your 5, 10, and 15-year plan for Milltown?
That's a tough one. That's a good question. 5-year plan, well, mayor position is only a 4-year term. But a 5-year plan would definitely be to get our finances in order. The first thing we need to do is lay out exactly what projects need to be done, prioritize those. The biggest problem we have with that is Ford Avenue looming over our heads. It burdens us financially, and it burdens us on what's going to happen with our school system, whether that's going to have to be expanded. I know for many years we've taken a back seat to the increases from the school costs and put off projects that the borough really should have done because we know the impact that has on the residents. Unfortunately, the time has come when we've had to just put our foot down and say we have to do these things. So for 5-year, I would definitely work on our plan. For 10-year, I'd implement that plan. And for 15 years, I'd make sure we saw that plan through. Hopefully, I'm not sitting up here as mayor for 15 years because I believe that we do need a changing of the guards from time to time and that it's important for everyone in town to be heard. But for 15 years down the road, I'd like to see us back on track with routine maintenance programs. Water, sewer, roadways, curbs and sidewalks, like the rest of the towns.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor, 5, 10, 15-year plan.
I will say that I don't have a 5, 10, or 15-year plan. That's up to you. I am the elected representative that is going to listen to the residents, work with the residents, get your input, and then get the resources to channel to those goals. We have, obviously, we're in the business of keeping up the infrastructure and the water. That should be a given. We shouldn't allow that to deteriorate to the point that it's gotten now. But as far as the long-range planning, we have, from the engineers, a capital plan. We know that we've had for 10 years the water lines, the force main line, we had the water tower, we've had several other things, roadways, that we just can't get to sometimes because we have taken on too much debt for other projects that skipped over. But the reason for doing the strategic plan is we now have funneled down into buckets of what we will be coming together again and have our town work on that are important, and then we can work with our business administrator to get the resources to get them done over a long period of time. It's not up to me, it's up to everyone else.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor, this next audience question starts for you. Are there any ordinances you would put in place to help promote more ratables to come to Milltown?
That's a good one. I'm sure there are. I would love to see more ratables. As Councilman Ravelinsky said, that's really been the toughest thing of being on council, is knowing that the decisions that financially impact mostly homeowners. I mean, so as far as getting ratables, as I said before, if we can revitalize the downtown, bring in more businesses. I've heard from a lot of people that they're concerned about some of the empty spaces that are along Main Street. Unfortunately, we're pretty much fully developed, so there's not a lot of room to bring in new businesses. But I would certainly, reach out or do whatever I could to encourage businesses to come, and once they do come, to stay here. But the way that Milltown is set up is, unfortunately, that we are mostly a homeowner town, but I certainly would advocate to have a committee that could take a look at what we could do to bring in more business and therefore more ratables to our town.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky, any ordinances you'd put in place to help promote more ratables to come to Milltown?
I don't know if there'd necessarily be an ordinance directly off the bat, but I know some of the benefits that we have in Milltown is, and I saw it today, as some businesses were putting their garbage out onto the street, that we collect the garbage for the businesses in town, and that is something that a lot of towns do not do. They tell you put it in a dumpster and pay freehold cartage to take it away. That is a service that we provide to the businesses that are in town, and it's a way to keep them here. The other benefit is that we are a walking community, and the more foot traffic that we can generate downtown, the better, and I think more businesses that'll incur. The Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency will add a significant number of people, and once that comes through, that'll also assist. The electric rates for small businesses, not beating them over the head with costs, but making it fair and even. And lastly, something that I've been thinking and stirring around in my mind is we've got a bond out there for our new public works facility, and there's going to be some money left over, and I'd like to see that money utilized to revitalize the area along the waterfront there. Perhaps building a park, like a skate park, would generate some more businesses that want to come in and specialty serve the people that are there, and therefore generate even more business downtown.
Thank you. Next question starts with you, Mr. Ravelinsky. The audience member asks, at the council candidates forum last week, one candidate proposed using all the surplus from the utilities to stay in the utilities. Please provide your opinion on this proposal.
It's an excellent idea. In fact, in 2010, we had passed an ordinance where the water and sewer utility money had to stay within the water and sewer utilities. And before that, it was the little piggy bank for pet projects. which is why it never went up. And then once it wasn't your piggy bank anymore, well, why raise the rates even though your costs are going up? It was foolish decisions, very poor planning. And in fact, I think back to even earlier when we had an increase of 70% in our electric rates. And I can understand the concept that perhaps we want to charge the Home Depots and the Targets more than the residents, and therefore we should use utility rates instead of your taxes. But at that time, you could still write off your taxes. And currently, we bring in surplus anywhere, I think it's between $1.1 to $1.3 million from utility rates, extra surplus that is brought over to fund the balance of the budget. That's a drug that we got to get off. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take about 20 years to do so. But the utility money should stay there because sooner or later, you're going to need it. And you'll find yourself in a position of not having it.
Thank you. Ms. Mayor.
Yes. So Councilman Ravelinsky and I were on the Finance Committee together last year, and we discussed this several times with the auditor about weeding off our reliance on the electricity surplus. However, the problem is that, for instance, I think last year was $1.6 million in extra revenue brought in by the electric. If we eliminated that and put it all back into the electric, as it was stated should be done, that is going to have to be made up for in either cuts in the general fund or raising all of your taxes. That's a huge jump to do that. So we talked about over the time to take less and less out of the electric fund. There is nothing from the water sewer. However, we've had to take for the down payment for the municipal project money out of the water sewer fund, the electric fund, and the general fund. So either we'd have to drastically cut our spending in the general fund or have that made up by you taxpayer.
Thank you. This is the last of the pre-submitted audience questions. I don't know if there are any additional questions. No, there are not. So this is the last of the audience questions. It goes to you, Ms. Mayor. First, how would you address the ongoing property maintenance issue in town?
Well, actually, I brought this up at the last council meeting. So I hear a lot from people. I had a call from a resident who was complaining that the neighborhood, some absentee landlords in the neighborhood weren't cutting the grass, and I asked for a resolution or an ordinance to be put on that would set a fine schedule to deal with that. Because I think what's happened is we've sent code enforcement out, and as I talked to the BA, we have to make sure that there's a regular oversight by the code enforcement office of these properties. So if the code enforcement should be going out regularly, checking to see if people aren't doing their lawn, if something's in disrepair, and if so, then have clearly stated, you get this warning, then you get this fine, then you get that fine, and then the borough will take care of it. However, what's been happening is the borough takes care of it without the previous fines, and then I've recently heard that we don't even get compensated for when we send the lawn company out. So we don't want to turn the borough into a lawn service company where there's no impetus if you don't get fined first to go out and mow your lawn if you're a landlord. Or so people that are taking pride in ownership want to make sure that the rest of the town is doing the same.
Thank you. Mr. Ravelinsky, property maintenance.
Sure. I'd like to correct Councilwoman Mayor's comment there that we're not collecting the money from us mowing the lawns. In fact, that is just not true.
Well, that's what the
We
BA
do-
told
Excuse
me.
me.
The BA did say that. I'd rather not say that she's not being
Please
truthful.
continue, Mr. Ravelinsky.
Thank you. The councilwoman has a habit of interrupting people when they speak, not only here, but during council meetings, which is just tremendous sign of respect.
True.
So, it is not true that we don't collect that money. In fact, we process liens against those homes in order to collect that money through taxation. And then we can also sell those as back taxes, to which the property owner is due for more. In regards to property maintenance in other areas, we do have abandoned non-working vehicles throughout the town. We do have folks that have far too many vehicles, and we don't have a zombie house ordinance. Anything in regards to if you're not at that property anymore, what do we do to ensure that the property is being maintained? And that's important because You know, at any given time, there's a handful of houses that have been left behind and not maintained. And we need to be able to stay on top of those better and not just find out when the water service breaks and there's water coming out the street or that no one's paid the bill in some time. So there's obviously some things that we can do to improve that, but we do actually fine people, and I think it's a great idea to increase those fines based on the number of occurrences.
Thank you. This concludes the audience questions portion of our forum, and we will now take a 5-minute break, after which we will have 3-minute closing remarks. Ms. Mayor will begin that when we return. Thank you. We reconvene our Mayoral Forum with closing statements. Ms. Mayor goes first.
Thank you. And thank you to Russ and the Cable Access Committee for coordinating the forums this year. Thanks to the media and to our moderator and to Mr. Potter for being the timekeeper. I'd also like to thank my opponent this evening, as well as all of the council candidates who were here last week for sharing their ideas. Finally, thanks to all of the supporters for all the work that you've done during the campaign. The highlight of the campaign for me is getting to talk to so many people around town. I've met many new people, and I've reconnected with people that I haven't seen in years. My opponent and I have some fundamental differences in our approach in governing Milltown. However, there's no question that the reason that we're up here is we love our town. Last night, as I was doing a little homework for the forum, before I started watching This Is Us, I watched the old videos of forums on YouTube. My opponent told an amusing anecdote about a man who said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them proportionately. So my question is, who's listened when the seniors sat here and begged not to raise the rates or not to raise the minimum tier? Who listened to when we had public referendums and yet we went the other way? I would hope that when you go back and you look at our records, you will look at who's listening. Some of the times that I voted no was because I was listening to the people who I represent. So as I said, we all love our hometown. We grew up here. We moved here to raise our families. My father was born here, and no one loved Milltown more than him. It's a great small town. Let's keep it that way by planning for its future. So please vote for leadership to drive our vision and plans. Anna Neubauer and Phil Zambrana for council, and me, Trina Jensen, mayor, for mayor. If you'd like to get more information about our platform, please visit the Milltown Democratic Organization's Facebook page or on Instagram or the milltowndemocrats.org. I thank all of the people that were here tonight and all of the people at home, and I look forward to speaking to you more over the next couple weeks, so please, on November 5th, remember to vote for Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Mr. Ravelinsky, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. As I walked around town today, I saw a few kids playing at the park. Smiling, laughing, not a care in the world. I stopped to appreciate the moment and give thanks for our town, where the sounds of children playing still fill the air. I thought about their future and what they would think about their hometown in years to come. It reinvigorated my sense of duty and made me realize how lucky I am, not only to live here and for my family, but to my parents who worked so hard to raise me in Milltown, and how lucky I am to be before you tonight as a leader in your community, guiding our future. I'd like to thank everyone who made tonight possible as we discuss the future of Milltown. Most importantly, I want to thank our residents who took the time away from their busy days, their families, and other obligations to tune in and learn more about your candidates. JFK said it best: let's not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let's not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our own responsibility for the future. By voting on Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th, you are taking the first step, committing yourself to the future of Milltown. Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. What matters most is who you believe will make the right decision and has the courage to see them through. I am proud to have served Milltown and my community as councilman over the past 3 years. And now, as my term on council expires, I hope you will support me in continuing to give back to Milltown as your next mayor. Going door to door or playing with my children in the park, residents have expressed their concerns for our future. Not happy about rate increases, but understanding what needs to be done. Misinformed about the public works facility, but nonetheless see Milltown moving to secure its future. While there are a multitude of issues we face in town, residents want to see their elected officials working together and taking action, not placing blame or bickering. As your mayor, I will take action. Every accomplishment starts with the decision to try and is achieved with the will to succeed. Together, Milltown will succeed. We will fix and address the issues that plague us, united as one. We have a lot of tough decisions to make as we move forward to ensure the success and longevity of the borough. And we need a leader who will commit to seeing those through. As mayor, I will always act in the best interest of the borough. I will use the powers granted me to make Milltown better. I take my oath seriously and my responsibility to the residents of this town, not myself, as the motivation. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Ravelinsky. In conclusion, our thanks to each of the candidates for joining us for tonight's forum. We also thank the local Milltown Access Channel Committee, including timer Dave Potter and station manager Russell Einbinder. The video replay for this forum can be seen on Channel 15 and on YouTube. And this concludes the 2019 Candidates Forum for the Milltown Borough Mayoral Race. Thank you for joining us. And now if you join us in giving a little applause for each of the candidates.